mean, that point about education seems to have informed all of your work. I mean, in a sense, it's strange for me to be sat here talking to you about Orwell, when, of course, you're the rap Shakespeare. He's the the Jay-Z of his day.
Well, yeah, I think that. Well, yeah, Shakespeare was. I say Shakespeare was more than Jay-Z in terms of the business aspect. Obviously, retiring and owning the cotton company and everything else. For me, I think. Again, with Orwell, it was his first-hand experience, going to Burma, being in Catalonia, etc., etc. He lived a lot of the things he was writing about, whereas a lot of other writers didn't, and that came through. And I think his visceral way of writing, this kind of almost unpretty, very direct language, comes from seeing death firsthand, comes from seeing colonialism firsthand. And I think that's why his work has lived on and will continue to live on, maybe even past some other writers that some people would say have more technical ability. So they can be more pretty with language, but can they cut straight to the chase and make you feel what they're saying? Probably not.
That ability to face unpleasant facts,
yeah,
and to always try and tell the truth.
To just call it what it is without giving a damn what anybody thinks or feels. And I think that's Orwell's strongest characteristic. Sometimes he's so frank, it's like a punch in the face. Like that whole phrase in 1984 where it's like a boot stamping on your face for forever. I mean, who says stuff like that? And it's that I think he relates to a lot of hip-hop artists in that sense. A lot of the best hip-hop artists where they don't care. They will say what pop stars are not supposed to say. And that's why hip-hop's a really inconvenient form of music, because it's built on saying what the establishment doesn't want you to say. So it could be argued that people who are not doing that don't belong to hip hop. They belong to something else. It's not hip hop. It's I don't know. It's Spice Girls.
I'm glad you mentioned language as well, because to take the Shakespeare and Orwell comparison a bit further, obviously you've done an awful lot of work around Shakespeare. You run and founded the Hip Hop Shakespeare Company. I've seen you on BBC Newsnight Review rapping Sonnet 18.
Yeah.
What sort of differences are in approaching Shakespeare, who writes lots of poetry and in blank verse, compared to Orwell, who, although did write a little bit of poetry, is much more straight down the line in prose? I mean, as a hip-hop artist, as a rap artist, how do you deal with that?
I think with Shakespeare there are more direct references that you can take and slot straight into, you can steal, basically. Because so many of these lines, number one, are already in verse, but number two, are so metaphoric, are so grand as lyrics, that you can literally just take lines from Shakespeare and put them in your raps, which I do all the time. And a lot of good rappers do. Or you can take concepts, but because it's prose, I don't think it's as easy to lift statements directly out. I mean, like War is Peace, we took War is Peace, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery. That has a rhythm to it, which you can take, and has an immediacy to it. But I think it's harder to take stuff from prose. But with Shakespeare, he was tremendously political, and I think that gets overlooked. The way he's presented to us is this kind of pro-establishment, in the Queen's pocket. Obviously, he was commissioned by King James. But I think he played a really fine line, at least that's the way I view it, in terms of his writing about power, his writing about authority, and the way he kind of satirized those in power. The way he wrote about race and colonialism and sex 500 years ago. I think he played a very fine line that could have gone really wrong for him, and I view Shakespeare as quite a political figure. That's just my opinion.
While we're on language, I found a wonderful quote when you were talking about the album to somebody else, that you were fascinated by the concept that limiting language limits people's thinking. Yeah. Of course, that's newspeak from Orwell's 1984.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, I see that every day. I see young people that, unlike my favourite rappers were more educated than my school teachers. That's not me being horrible to my school teachers. Go and listen to Wu-Tang Forever, and the whole album's about Socrates, whether or not there's a 10th planet in the solar system, and what the size of the universe is. I mean, that's the concepts rappers were rapping about. There was a rapper when we were growing up called Cannabis, despite the potentially strange name. He had a degree in astrophysics, and that's what he used to rap about. He used to rap about astrophysics. So as a kid growing up, he had a line that started, I speak in frequencies dogs would have trouble hearing. So that immediately made me think, oh, so dogs hear in a different frequency from human beings. Cannabis is the lyrical version of German engineering. What, is German engineering good? Like, do you see what I mean? So it was this whole kind of level of lyricism that, if you had to dissect it, you probably wouldn't even understand half of it. And I see how a new generation of rappers have come with this kind of ABC, really simple, droney, kind of semi-illiterate rap. And I see how that shaped the generation, where they sing along to something that's really basic, really negative, and then you play them something intelligent, and it's like, but then it affects the way they carry themselves in the day-to-day. So people will get into an argument, and just through not being able to express their point, get frustrated, and you can create problems. Just through simply not being able to express your feelings. And so that's how limiting language creates a culture, and that's not just true of hip-hop. I think that's a general thing. The more, when I get pulled over by the police, they don't take liberties with me that they take with some of the people I grew up with. Not because they wouldn't, but because they can't. Because the moment they hear me speaking, I ask them, so police officer, what legal statute are you pulling me over on? They're like, oh crap, who have we pulled over here? I mean, he's got a nice car, he's got an afro. We have the right to pull him over, don't we? We weren't expecting that. We weren't expecting a legal statute.
Does that happen often, see?
More often than it should, unfortunately, still in the 21st century. My friend's a surgeon. It's even funnier for him, because he's got a big flash Mercedes, right? And he's really kind of physically built guy, and he's got kind of, my car's just all right, but he's got like a big, nice, brand new Mercedes, and he gets pulled over maybe 3 or 4 times a year, so not a massive amount, but enough. When he tells him he's a doctor, it's like, you see the whole, it's like, oh. And so his being able to express himself, say, officer, what's the problem? No, I'm a surgeon, blah, blah, blah. His expression means that immediately it's like, oh, sorry. There's an apology now. Whereas, obviously, if you get out and you can't express yourself, there won't be an apology, and you can end up in the station just for being frustrated. Why are you pulling me over for? Blah, blah, blah. Getting angry, rather than just saying, come on.